Hi, welcome back. You might notice I've had a haircut and it'll grow back. It's good to get your money's worth. Anyway, I'm planning to do a charcoal drawing today, and I've picked some freesias from my garden and set up the easel ready to go. So today, just a quick lesson. Not quite sure how long this will take. But I'll be using a large piece of paper and some Willow charcoal, a kneadable eraser, and I'll be looking at the vase of flowers, but if you want to look at the photo that I'll put up on the screen, you're welcome to do that as well, or you could choose your own vase of flowers from your garden. And anyway, hope you enjoy today's lesson, and just before I switch over to the intro and the lesson itself, I'll show you a picture that I got back from the framers the other day. So I'll just switch the camera around. Here is the picture that I picked up, and you might have seen this artwork already on social media. This is my picture that I called Frog in the Pond. So it's based off a photo that I found on Canva, and I did that with watercolour. So yeah, one of my students wanted to learn about movement in art and how to create a feeling of movement in a painting. So we did this picture of a frog, and it was a bit different to what I normally do, but I was really pleased with the result. It reminds me a bit of, or quite a lot actually, of Beatrix Potter's paintings. And the frame is one that I've upcycled, so I actually got the frame from a thrift shop or an op shop, whatever you call it in your country. And I put some filler in some of the gaps around the fancy bits, and then painted it grey with chalk paint, and then put gold on top. And it was just, when I got it back from the framers, it was originally all gold all the way around, and it just looked a little bit too bright for me, a bit garish or something. And then I thought, how can I just tone it back a bit? And because I've been working on the excuse the random objects there, I've just moved some things before I do the drawing today. But because I've been using the chalk paint, the duck egg blue, already on the tea trolley, I thought, I reckon those colours would go nicely on the frame, and I'm actually really pleased with how that's turned out. So I've sort of given it, I guess you'd call it, that bit of distressed look or something, making it look a bit older or something. But I'm really happy with how that turned out, and it just, yeah, takes away the overwhelming feeling of all that gold that was there before, and tones it back. So anyway, that's that one, and that'll be for sale as well. So I'm still trying to put a price on it, but anyway, if you're interested, get in touch if you live nearby. It's too heavy to, unfortunately, to mail overseas. But if someone lived in Melbourne and was happy to pick it up, then that would be fine. Anyway, there is that. And I shall now get on to drawing the flowers with charcoal. See you after the intro. to go, and apologies for the lighting if it doesn't look quite right. It's quite an overcast day, it's been raining, it's windy, but spring is in the air. September's nearly upon us. Spring definitely smells like it's inside with the beautiful freesias, and the freesias are actually they were given to me by my grandma, who passed away, I'm trying to think, back in 2020, but they were given to me several years before that. Just a small bunch of bulbs from her house in Vermont, in Melbourne, and anyway, they've been spreading like crazy in the past year, and so I've cut some, brought them inside, and this is actually the first time I've smelt them this season, and so it brings back nice memories, and they seem to be bigger than previous years as well, like a bit taller, which is lovely, because I always remember them being quite short when they're at her place, so maybe they've just found their happy spot here, which is nice. Now I've got charcoal, some willow charcoal, and I haven't talked about charcoal before in my videos, but sometimes it's nice to be able to step back from doing the smaller, minute detailed works and just free things up a bit and do things on a larger scale, because you can feel a bit cramped in that if you're constantly doing very minute work. And I used to love doing charcoal drawings when I was at uni and at TAFE, and really fond memories of doing still life drawings with all the students gathered around a table that was set up with different objects and things, being taught how to draw them in the correct perspective and so on. And like with using chalk pastels, there's something very tactile about using charcoal. Not everyone likes it. It is very, what would I say? It's kind of fragile, because you can easily smudge it by mistake, but that also lends a nice quality to it that I enjoy. This is willow charcoal, so basically just burnt willow branches or sticks, and there are different thicknesses of it that you can get. Just rummaging around behind me. These remind me of, I haven't used them, but little silver things on them. It's quite nice. It reminds me of fancy cigarettes or something back in the day. Not that I ever used them, but I do remember some of my siblings and I being very intrigued by a mum that would drop her kids off at school when we were at primary school, and she had a very unique way of puffing smoke and sort of taking a breath of the smoke and then sort of do a few puffs out at once, and we thought it was very intriguing. Not that we ever wanted to smoke, but it was just highly amusing just to us for some reason. So anyway, we'll get off that topic. So there's the thicker one there, and you can also get compressed charcoal, which I think from what I can work out would be charcoal dust that's been basically compressed, squished together somehow to be a lot more solid and firm. And it does leave, it's harder to get on the page, whereas the willow charcoal is nice and soft, so it easily gets onto the page. And willow charcoal, something big going past the house, probably sweeping the streets. The willow charcoal is nice and soft, and it's easy to rub out with a kneadable eraser, which I talked about in my pastel drawing video. So that's it in ready. I've got the vase set back further away from me just because I wanted to draw it on a certain angle, and I could have put it on a block or something, but I couldn't really find anything quite suitable for what I needed, so I just have set the vase back a bit. I've taken a photo of it as well, which I'll pop on the screen. So if you want to follow along with that photo, you can. But anyway, let's get started. Now I do have a very faint grey lead pencil line just down the middle, just to guide me, to help me make sure I've got the middle of the vase in the right spot. Now it's been ages since I've done charcoal drawing, and something on this scale, so free, just from observation. And I imagine I'm going to have to do some rubbing out and so on as I go along. I'm going to start with working out where I want the top of the vase to be. And I'm just going to do some light sketchy lines. And again, I'm sort of getting a feel for the charcoal. And I'm just trying to decide, do I actually snip this in half? Because I'm used to using shorter bits. We'll see how we go. So I'm just going to loosely and lightly pop in where I think the vase is going to go. And this is not going to be a really neat, polished, super fine drawing. It's more of a sketch. We'll see where it takes us. So because I've got that line there, that will help me just to keep things symmetrical as much as possible. And then I'm just looking down to see roughly where I need to put some lines and things, just loosely, because I might need to come in and rub some bits out. Now the vase is a little bit weird because it has, on the angle that I've got it, that side is a bit different to the other side. And it looks like there's a chunk missing, but it's because there's like a, how would I describe it? Almost like a square star shape design in it, which is not reflected on the other side. So that side here is smoother, whereas this side has got a little bit of a bump in it, a bit different. I'll decide whether I do all that bit in there or not. And I got the vase in an antique store, a big antique store in Yarra Glen, down the bottom of the street next to the petrol station. So Yarra Glen is a beautiful little, I guess you call it a country town, since it's surrounded by farmland, just on the outskirts of Melbourne, out past Lilydale. So yeah, I love the colour of the vase, and I'm guessing it would be Art Deco, sort of around that era. And then I'll pop in the round bit down here, and then I'll step back and see whether I need to adjust anything, rub bits out, change things. That will give you a chance to see it a bit better if my back was in the way. Okay, one challenge when you step back from something that's further away is that the angle is going to change as you go further back. So the distance there will get smaller as I go further away from the vase and further away from my paper. So I need to keep that in mind and not to think, oh no, I've stuffed it up. But I will actually adjust that a bit. And I think I'm actually going to bring that down a little bit lower. So I get my kneadable razor. And with charcoal drawing, generally we don't stress too much about rubbing out every little bit. It's just part of the overall effect. I mean, we are just practicing, but sometimes you might do something that you think, oh, that's actually nice enough to frame. So yeah, you do want to neaten it up a bit, but if you see some bits underneath, that's in a way just part of the charm. So charcoal has always been a temporary sort of medium, or like a drafting or a practice kind of medium to use, just to mock things up, to plan things, because it doesn't survive very well unless you've got it in a frame pretty quick. But I guess it's probably the earliest form, like of a drawing medium. I imagine our ancestors sitting around the campfire and someone picking up a burnt stick and drawing, just making a mark on something and going, oh, how about I draw Auntie Betty over there on a bit of rock. Yeah, so I'm glad I brought it down a bit lower. That'll also allow me enough space to put in the freesias and things. I am wishing that I'd moved it down a bit lower so that I had a bit more, like, I think the flowers will fit in okay, but it just means that if I do want to stick it in a frame, I might have to cut off the bottom of it, and which is okay. I can just cut off some of the edge of the paper so that I've got an even amount of gap around the edges, but we'll see how we go. And I don't really want to change that up now. Now, before I go further with the vase, I'm going to start to pop in the flowers, the stems and the leaves. Normally I wouldn't put the freesia leaves in a vase, but I cut them down a bit lower, and it's nice to have that added element in there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the central one, trying to work out what angles it sort of bends around a bit. And it doesn't matter if you change it up a bit, so long as people look at it and go, oh, that's a freesia, that's fine. Alright, so there's my central one. Some of you will go, oh, don't do it, but I will. Snap. Okay. Yeah, that's easier for me. I'm used to using bits about this size. Just easier for me to control. You'll notice instantly that it's actually darker. So it seems like the lower down you hold charcoal, you just naturally seem to be putting more pressure on it, so it will go darker that way. So if you do want it to be lighter and just loosely sketch it, then you could leave the whole length. But I just feel like I've got a bit more control when I'm using that. I'm just going to have a sip of dandelion chai with oat milk. Feels like I'm drinking the garden as well as drawing some of it. Okay. Now I'm going to look at the edge of the vase there, which is not fully complete yet. I've still got to do the bumpy bits. And I just want to work out how far up I should go. So think about there to then bring the flowers themselves out from. I'm just going to grab my reading glasses or my multifocals. So I can see it okay, but I just wonder if I might have a little bit more precision with them. And not necessarily. Let's see if I can survive without them. I don't like wearing them all the time if I don't have to. Okay, now this one. So that kind of curves around there. You can get your finger in there as well and do some smudgy bits if you like, or get it in the kneadable eraser. And comes the rain, which is very good for the garden. On Saturday I spent pretty much the whole day, well until dinner time, in the garden, and did a lot of weeding. There's a lot of thick weeds that, like, well, not exactly weeds, but I don't know if it's couch grass or buffalo grass. It's got really thick, wandering, I don't know if you call them stems or whatever, wandering things. So really thick, kind of easy to pull up in a way, but the roots do go deep. I've got the other kind as well, which is a lot more wiry and thin, and that's really annoying because it's really hard to pull up. The other one, I just find it's easy. You pull on a bit and keep pulling, and just want to get this huge rope thing come up. Anyway, they come through the fence next door, the thicker ones. Yeah. Whereas the lawn that's meant to be on this side is the thin, wiry one that's probably more annoying in some ways. Okay. And that's not exactly right, but that's pretty good. Okay, so that's going alright. I feel like doing a bit more work on the vase now. And it sort of comes in, trying to capture some of the interesting patterns on the glass. Oops. Goes back out again. And then on the top here we've got something like that. It's a challenge in a way to find a vase that is easy to draw. I like this one. But like if you had a round, clear crystal or glass vase, you might think it's easy, but then in some ways, well, you'll see a lot more of what's inside it, and things can get distorted. You've also got the reflections and slight changes of tone. And then other vases I've got have a lot of patterns and things on them, so that can also get complicated. But this one just seems to be reasonably straightforward, even though it does have the design on it, but the design will be part of the beauty, hopefully, of the finished drawing. Now that line sort of goes in a bit. And yesterday I visited the Villa Alba Museum in Kew in Melbourne. So I was contacted after some of my artworks appeared on the Cadeau at the Chateau program on YouTube with Stephanie Jarvis and Chateau Lalonde and all the Lalondes. The secretary of the Villa Alba was watching the video and saw my work, and so he contacted me and invited me to come and have a look around the place and see if I wanted to do a collaboration or two, maybe an exhibition or a workshop or something, or both. And yeah, so I went along yesterday and had a look through the property. It's a beautiful old building, and I'll put some photos that I took while I was there up on Instagram, so that you can have a look at those if you want to. And it's pretty sure it's a double-story building, and there are some towers on it as well, or at least one big one at the front. Just going by memory, I might have a few details wrong. And we thought it was probably, or I think it's regarded as like Italianate or something. So it's got the round arches rather than the Gothic ones. and I think it was part of the hospital nearby originally, or maybe it belonged to, I think maybe it belonged to a family nearby, and then it was at some point part of the hospital. I can't quite remember, but you can look up the details. But then all the contents were sold pretty much years ago, and a society or something like that formed to preserve the building, and so now they're trying to raise funds and get volunteers in to come and help restore the building. And there's some design work on the walls and the ceilings that are just stunning, done by some of Australia's top designers. I assume they were Australian, back in the late 1800s, or late 19th century. And I don't know a lot about early Australian design. We did look a little bit at it when I was at uni doing art history, but it was just stunning to see the detail there, and some of it reminded me of a bit of William Morris style, a bit of Art Nouveau kind of things, or the predecessor to that. And some lovely bits of lots of chandeliers and fireplaces and things. And some lovely gardens surrounding the building. So there's a huge amount of work still to do on it. But yeah, just like when you're watching the chateau restoration programs, you can see the amazing potential there. You can see where they have already uncovered some of the original pattern work and designs on the walls that were covered up years ago, and they're planning to have those redone. Yeah, so that was a lovely experience, and yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some collaborative things with them there, hopefully later in the year. And the public can go and visit now, as far as I know. I think it was $15 per person for a visit. And all the details are on the Villa Alba's website. And the views from some of the windows are stunning, looking down across Melbourne. My advice though, if you want to have some lunch when you're in Kew, and if you're going to visit, actually go into Kew itself and find a cafe rather than going to any of the places really close by, because I did that, and the place near us had a wedding on at the time. It looked like an amazing venue, but it was shut for the public, and it needs to go up higher. Oops. It's a problem when I'm talking and working at the same time. I distract myself. Oh no, some of that was right. I just need to bring it up higher. So I think it goes up there, and then that one goes down there, and then it forms that thing. That's it. Got it. And that one actually goes down there. No, I didn't quite get that right. So you can see it does rub out fairly easily. It's not going to rub out perfectly like if you were using the grey lead pencil. As you press lightly. Alright, I think this is how it goes. Yeah, so anyway, I turned up to that place expecting it would be open, and it was shut for a wedding or something. And then I went down to the boathouse, which was lovely as well, but very, very busy, and I don't like a lot of noise, and being surrounded by people, and it was just after navigating my way into queue and all that, I just thought I should have just gone to a local cafe in the main shopping area of Kew itself, because I was a bit more familiar with that area since my grandma lived at the Baptist home in Kew for many years. Okay. Now I'm just looking at how I'm doing with those details. And again, too much talking. So if I was at school with the students, I'd say, "Oi, stop talking. You got to do better work when you concentrate." And I'll rub that back because I don't want it to be too dark in places. Okay. Now I could use the smudgy stick, which is, well, I think normally they're called paper stumps, tightly rolled up paper, and you just sharpen it on the edge like that, on the angle, with a bit of sandpaper to rub off the charcoal or pastel. I don't tend to use them as much because I do like putting my finger in and just feeling the texture of the paper and the pastel or charcoal and so on. Alright, now I'm going to bring in the edge a bit. As the fish tank gently trickles away, and they're all looking at me saying, "When are you going to clean the tank?" So it's not too bad, but could do with a little bit of a water change. Now this side here needs to come in as well. Hopefully if you haven't used charcoal before or you haven't used it much, you can just see what kind of marks it makes, and you can sort of compare it with other mediums. And the different qualities that each has. That's a bumpy bit, squishy bit. So as far as my ongoing projects go, tea trolley's still waiting to have its gold painting or paintwork finished. The curtain material is in the corner of my studio room waiting for me. Probably do that in school holidays and have a bit more time on my hands, because it's been quite a hectic term, being back at school to do casual teaching as well as doing all the other online classes and live classes and YouTube videos and occasionally making my own artwork. Bring that in this way, I think. And yeah, so curtains, haven't started them. At least I got that frame done for the frog. I dropped off my old books painting with the old man at the Collins Street bookshop today to get put in its frame. So it's an older frame that I bought, but I wanted it to be put in properly. Okay, and let's see how we go here. 1 bump, 2 bump, 3, feel like something's not quite right there with the lumpy bits. It goes like that. And it comes down there a bit. There's also what's called foreshortening. I think that's the right term. Where when things are on a different angle, some things will look a bit shorter. So the things that are directly in front of you will look longer, but things that are coming out at an angle or straight towards you or at an angle, they will look, the distance will look different, even though we know on the vase that bit should be, like, it is the same width as that bit. It'll just look different because of the angle that it's at. Okay. Bring that out a bit. And then that one sort of go in a bit like that. Okay, it's looking a bit wonky in places. I might start adding a bit of shading in. Smooth it out. Maybe this vase wasn't so easy after all. Alright, step back a bit. It's going okay, but I think maybe I've brought the back up a bit too high. Alright, sorry back. But you're going to have to come down in the world a bit. And dandelion tea. Alright, so let's bring you down a bit more. Like that. And then that. That. And that. And let me step back. I think that's heading in the right direction. Except now I've got that annoying bit there. But there are ways to get rid of that without cutting out the picture. Sometimes my students do, which is okay. let's pop in another stem. Freesias. Excuse me, like Freesias. Freesias do have very wiry stems on them. Whoops. A bit out of practice with the old charcoal. Alright, that's okay. There's that stem there, then there's a leaf coming out at the same place, but going up to about here. There we go. And then there's another one just over here. And alright, I've drawn that one. Freesia is there. And then looking in between this bit, and there's a bit of a line there, edge. And it comes out up here, bobbly bit, little bud, and then nice long stem coming out, sorry, leaf coming out here. And then we've got bud coming out over there, so I need to rub into there a bit. Good, that came off mostly pretty well. And the kneadable erasers can be used to draw with as well. So sometimes at uni we would blacken the whole page with charcoal and then use the kneadable eraser to actually draw into it, into the darkened background. So there's that bit, there's another little bud there. Now you could do the same sort of thing with grey lead pencils, colour pencils, pastels, fine liner, but each medium will work in a slightly different way. The closest one probably to this would be either a soft grey lead or the chalk pastels. Chalk pastels will definitely give it a smudginess, plus colour if you're using coloured ones. Bigger bud over here. Okay, now bring out the trumpeting Freesia over here. So I'll just sand it so I get a nice point on it. Excuse me, bulldogs. It was nice walking out to the laundry to get the sandpaper and then coming back and smelling the Freesias in the air. And they don't seem to be bothering my sinuses at this point, which is a good sign. They never used to when I was a boy. So I'm hoping it's other things that are causing allergies and not the nice flowers in the garden. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. Comes in, oops, and then goes back out again. So it's good to keep in mind that we're practicing, we're sketching. If it turns out beautifully, bonus. If it doesn't, it's just like practicing the violin or piano or something, you know. You just see it as practice. You finish and then it's like, oh yeah, you know, I think I could do better with a few things, but I've improved with those notes or something. And each time you practice, you just notice it. Well, over time, oh, I think I'm getting a bit better. And the more you use a certain medium, the easier it becomes as well. So if I was doing this on a small bit of paper with grow lead or colour pencils or fine liner or something, I'm sure that I'd be chugging along more quickly and confidently. But it's been ages since I've used the charcoal in this way, and that's okay. It's not a competition. I'm simply trying to enjoy observing my grandma's Freesias and develop my skills and let you listen in and hopefully learn some things as well. Sometimes through my mistakes, just like I've learned through my mistakes as well. There's a few of the Freesias that look a bit more purpley out there, although I don't remember buying any or being given any that were a different colour. Although I did get some brightly coloured ones from my dad for Easter, which haven't flowered yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing them. But yeah, maybe there's a bit of variation happening in some of the bulbs. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening in there. We'll have another look at that soon. And then there is a leaf thing that comes up here, and then it goes up to there. Alright, that's taken care of. This leaf actually needs to come up higher and go up to there. A bit more drama to it. And then we've got little bobbly bits, which are green, almost like a narrow love heart. So flowers can be and plants can be a lovely way to remember those that have passed on from this life. And I do have some, I don't know what they are. Whether they're some kind of lily or hippeastrum or something. They're not an intense red, it's almost a slightly orangey red. They come up from a bulb each year. They belong to my grandma kingdom. The Freesias belong to my grandma Bennett's. But it's actually lavender that reminds me the most of my grandma kingdom. And that's because, not that she grew a lot of lavender herself, but she and my grandpa lived in Portland, which is pretty much on the border of South Australia and Victoria. And so Grandpa was the pastor at Portland Baptist Church for a few years when I was fairly little. And outside the church itself, which was next door to the manse that they lived in, there was a whole row of beautiful lavender bushes. And I remember one time my grandma picking a whole lot of dried lavender with us and making little lavender sachet things, and the smell was just gorgeous. Lots of bees hanging around. So every time I smell lavender, I think of Grandma Kingdom. And she didn't wear lavender water as far as I know, but she did. Yeah, it's just that nice connection. It's probably more Grandma Kingdom's cooking that I remember her for, actually. Whereas Grandma Bennett's had a beautiful big garden in Vermont. I remember the camellias, lots of camellias that she'd bring inside and put in vases. And jacaranda trees, or at least one jacaranda tree, silver birches out the front, and garden beds with your typical cottage garden perennials and annuals, lemon trees and things. Grandma Kingdom, I remember her pavlovas with the peppermint crisps on top, and roast dinners, especially at Christmas time. She'd have, I think, chicken, ham and pineapple as the meats. Slightly tropical feel to it, but it was very nice. And she'd always have a magnificent spread of food on the coffee table as far as having afternoon tea or supper went. And she'd always be saying, "Now eat it all up, it's all got to go." But then we'd get the look from Dad saying, "No, you've had enough." Okay, now there's one more big leaf, the most bold and obvious one, which is going to cut through that bud there. So what we're doing, it's not about so much about the finished artwork. It's about the process. It's about actually the main thing we're doing is learning how to observe the vase and the flowers, the leaves, the relationship between them, work out proportions and things, try to get perspective right, rearrange things. So it's an exercise, it's practice, and that's what charcoal's great for. Doesn't cost much to get a burnt stick. You're not having this fancy canvas and expensive paints and things, and then get to the end and think, oh, that was a bit of a waste of money. Not that painting is a waste of money, like even if things stuff up, because you learn valuable lessons, but you know what I mean. If you're going to spend all that money, you'd like to have something at the end that you're pretty happy with. Okay, so I think I shall, let's see. It's pretty much on par with that one here. And I'll bring it out about there. And then lightly bring it down to land. And there, didn't quite go where I wanted it to, but that's okay. No one will know, will they? Actually, I was going to do the other side of the leaf there, but if I do it here, I can cheat a bit. I might just get that a little bit sharper. Feels a little bit unnatural for my arm to be at this angle. over that bit. Touch it up later. So there is that, and then we've got the main flowers over here, the trumpety freesias. My grandma's name was Frida, so for some reason when I do think of my grandma Kingdom when I think of Freesias, even though she didn't have Freesias as far as I can remember. It's my grandma Bennett's, Marcia Bennett's. She was the one with the Freesias growing. Well, Grandma Kingdom's full name was Elfrida, but she preferred being called Frida. Not that I ever called her that, of course. But grandparents can be a great blessing from God, and I'm super thankful for the 4 amazing grandparents that I was blessed with. And I'm looking forward to seeing them again one day in heaven. Looking forward to seeing Grandma Bennett's garden, which will, I'm sure, far outweigh anything she was able to do in this life. And I'm looking forward to tasting Grandma Kingdom's roast dinners and sweet treats. Although I think I'll have to line up for those, because being a pastor's wife all her life, all her working life, she will have a lot of people waiting to catch up with her. I'm sure she'll let me jump the queue, being family. So it's nice that we can find ways to remember our loved ones once they've passed on in tangible ways. It might be furniture that you have in the house, plants that meant something to them, things that you can remember. It might even be recipes that you cook. I do have a bunch of recipes that I wrote down that my grandparents or my grandmas used to make often. Although now that I'm having to eat very healthily, I don't really get to make those recipes, but it's nice to even just read them occasionally and see them and remember the things. And look forward to one day when I get to heaven and not have to worry about the diet, to eating all those goodies again, and even better. Grandma Bennett's specialty was making apple pies. She'd always tell us the story of a man called Will Curtis, I think that was his name. Might have that a bit wrong. And I don't know if he was a professional baker or something, but he showed her how to make proper pie pastry once. And so she perfected, or believed she perfected, the art of making, that's that one there. I'll just move that back a bit. So she believed she perfected the art of making apple pie pastry, and it was pretty good. But she did load it up with a huge amount of sugar, the white sugar. We didn't mind at all at the time, but just thinking it wasn't exactly healthy. I'll bring you, Mr. Bud, out just a bit more, exaggerate you. And I'm not happy with the middle of that. Let me just stand back so you can see things in case I've been in the way. And the freesias do look a little bit small in relation to the size of the vase. Maybe I've made the vase a bit too fat. But even looking at, like, just in real life, yeah, you could probably put flowers in that vase that are slightly bigger or wider, whatever. But anyway, we will press on. Oops. That wasn't helpful, Mr. Kingdom. Yeah, I think that's, yep, that's doing better. And then there is another one. Comes down there and across there and onto a stem. Which, did I draw that in? Yeah, that's that stem there, so I'll just join it onto there. Okay. And it comes down here. Dandelion tea time. It's very lukewarm now. Well, somehow I find if you start it off when it's really hot, even if you pick it up and it's almost cold, you don't mind, but if you were to have it cold straight away, I'd be like, oh, spit it out. Alright, bring this one down here. No, that went too far out. And my finger is not the best eraser. Okay, so that, I need an extra one coming out here, not too far. And then one sticking out there. Another bit going here. And maybe I just need to adjust this bit here. And bring it across a bit more like that. Change you a little. And then pop a line in there. Yeah, I think that's alright. And then there's another one that's hidden in here a bit at the back. So just looking at the shapes of things, looking at the outside edge. Trying not to think I'm drawing a freesia or a flower, and just looking at the shapes. How the different parts relate to each other. Okay, that's good. Yoink. Just a little line there. And then sort of smudge those bubbly bits. And then behind there we've just got some more bubbly bits. The line. Okay, let me step back and have a look. Oh, now looking over here, I'm thinking, oh, it looks very unbalanced, and that's because I did not finish this side. Okay, so you've got a trumpety freesia coming down over here. It's a lovely thought being just on the verge of spring, hearing the blackbirds, particularly at night, singing away, and a bit more light in the day, especially early on in the morning. And the last couple of days it's been a bit warmer, even though today it's been wet. And just, when you sense that first bit of warmth in the air and the fragrance of the bulbs that are opening up, seeing the blossom on the trees, it really refreshes the soul. Reminds you of, or me of, in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, when winter finally vanishes and spring appears everywhere. When Aslan shakes his mane, we shall have spring again. I think that's how it goes. Okay, another petal coming up here. I'm going up here. I'll have to adjust some of this bit, I'm sure. Okay, then we've got another one that comes out here, and that will help to balance out the other side. If it was all on that side, then it would just look too much that way, and we want balance in here. So it's not exactly symmetrical. The vase kind of is, but not quite. But we want to have balance even if it's not symmetrical. Otherwise you just feel like things are not quite right with the world and that you're tipping one way. Alright. Now if you do this drawing when no one else is around, or you shut yourself away in a room, at the end of it, no one needs to see it. So that's another way to just help you not feel too precious about what you're doing. You don't have to show everyone everything that you do. Like, I'm feeling the pressure, like, oh, I've got to be this amazing artist on YouTube that gets everything perfect and everything's immaculate. And I've just got to remind myself, no, I'm just doing what artists should do, and that's just practicing, making mistakes, refining things, learning from them. Part of the process. And I don't have to be that perfect person that YouTube tells me I need to be. I'll save that side of things for heaven. And even then, I think we'll be growing in our abilities and trying new things and improving as we go with things. I think the learning process is going to be an eternal one, not just zap, oh, you know everything. It's like, because that takes away the joy of discovery. And there's not as many laughs either. You get everything right all the time. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, so I'm happy with this bit. The vase is too fat. Will I feel like I'd like to make it narrower. Bring it in a bit. Drastic measures, practicing, trying, messing up, refining dandelion tea, it's called. But it does remind me of gingerbread man. It's like a really soggy gingerbread man. Alright, so let's just bring you Mr. Vase in a bit more. There, we'll give you a nice hourglass figure. That's better. Now you can fit into those extra small clothes from the vase shop. I wonder what sort of clothes a vase would wear. They probably wouldn't be very modest, I imagine. Okay, lots of see-through tops. And I shall stop meandering with strange thoughts. Alright, that's better. Now you might be thinking, oh, but I can see the fuzzy things and I'd like to stick it in a frame and treasure it forever. You know, what do I do about those bits? Excuse me. So that is where we can come in and actually do some shading in the background. Diagonal strokes. Look at that rich blackness, or black richness. And then you can get your finger in there and smudge, or grab the smudgy stick and go smudging. Nice and slick. Now I know at the moment that looks a bit weird because it's, yeah, I have to add in more of it. There we go. Okay, so I think at this point I'm going to stop jabbering and get a coffee, and then I'll do time lapse for the rest so that you can see how I finish it off. But I think I've given you enough instruction and amusing stories and things and sentimental thoughts to get you started. And anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And yeah, if you'd like to check out some of my products, remember I've got the Zazzle store. You can also order some prints through my website. If you get in touch, send me an email. And anyway, I hope to see you in the next video, and happy charcoaling. here's the finished drawing. You'll notice that the background is different now to partway through the time-lapse section of the video. I was trying to give a feel for the table and the background in my drawing, but in the end I decided that I actually liked the black background. Some of that was happening earlier on and I was enjoying that, but then I felt like I was losing that richness surrounding the vase and the flowers. So even though I thought I'd finished and I signed the work, I then worked over it again with the black, because I thought I really like the design aspect of just having the black background with that tiny little hint of a reflection of the vase down the very bottom of the vase. So some of you might prefer the background that I had earlier on, but for me, I'm quite happy with what I've ended up with in the end. I like the fact that the vase and the flowers are the key feature of the work, and it's not just a still life, but it goes into the realm of design, and I think this would look great on cards and things and as a print, just as it is now. So anyway, just thought I'd pop in and explain why I made that choice. And sometimes, yeah, you have to rework things when you're not sure if they're working quite right. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I'll plan to give an update soon on how the chalk pastel drawing is going of the Werribee River. So I'll see you next time. Thanks.